So we were talking about this earlier pre-show, but we got the cover, the book here. This cover tells a story, right? It's yeah, it's got like kind of that stereotypical romance novel kind of look to
It
it.
really does. Yep. This is aimed squarely at the I think the romance novel demographic as far as the cover art
Or
goes.
at least the cover art and trying to maybe catch somebody like at Target, you're walking by and you're like,
I think
oh
it's
look, like
exactly
I've
it.
always wanted to read a Star Wars book, but I've been waiting for them to do a romance novel.
Exactly. And so as you're walking by, it like catches your eye and go, oh, I think it's exactly what it is. Because
right,
the book itself is not exactly
really,
a
not
romance
really
novel.
romance. Yeah,
No.
I mean, there's romance in it to an extent.
Yeah, but there is in other Star Wars books too.
Yeah,
I
it
wouldn't say it's
feels
any
like a
more.
typical. Like if you're worried about like, oh, I don't want to read that because it's just going to be like a lovey-dovey Star Wars book.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not what this is.
Yeah.
But there are moments. I think they heighten some of the romantic moments more than maybe you'd see in other Star Wars.
Yes, I think that's a fair description. Yeah.
I also found that the actual cover of the book, like if you take the dust jacket off, the color of it is very unique.
Oh yeah,
you don't typically see this color for a Star
more
Wars
of
book.
a light blue teal color.
Yeah, so
Happens to be one of my wife's favorite colors, so
yeah,
she was
so
very happy.
It actually it stands out for sure.
It does,
and I think the cover art's really cool.
Yeah, I like that they're trying something different. I mean, ultimately the book itself didn't really feel like a romance novel, but it's nice that they're trying to do in some ways more genres and hit different demographics and try different things with the Star Wars books, because they're often very, I mean, we've had horror books before, we've had other genres, but romance novels, again, isn't exactly one, but it's the first time they've really attempted that sort of thing in a Star Wars novel.
Right. So I think we talked about this before. You don't typically do the audiobooks.
I oftentimes I will listen to them. I tend to prefer reading because my brain will just get distracted as I'm doing other stuff, and but I do listen to at least a few chapters of most of the books just to kind of get a sense of
the performance. You do that for this one?
Yes, I did. We listened to a little bit. I liked how they had the two different narrators. It was a nice touch.
Or you're not supposed to stop talking right as I'm taking my drink. You're supposed to talk through that. No, I agree. Like the two different narrators was definitely a unique thing. Not that they haven't had multiple. They've done like kind of audio drama type books where they have like a full cast, but typically if it's a narrator, it's just going to be one narrator.
Right.
So I don't know if they've ever done this before. It's the first time I can remember that they've done, kind of one narrator focused on Leia, the other narrator focused on Han, and the chapters are broken down between the two characters. And so they would switch back and forth. So if it was a Han focused chapter, it would be it would be Mark Thompson, and if it was a Leia focused chapter, it'd be Saskia Marleveld. I never know if I'm saying her name correctly, but so it was cool because sometimes when you're listening to an audiobook, and like if Saskia was doing the whole book, right, she's not going to nail the Han voice as well as Mark Thompson.
No.
And so sometimes that can be a complaint. They're like, oh, well, I like the book, but the voice just didn't sound right. So the fact that they were able to switch between the two, she could do great for Leia, Mark Thompson could do great for Han, and it didn't really kind of pull you out of it. Yeah. So I thought it was kind of a cool idea to do it that way. I was on board with it.
Yeah, I really liked it. And of course, Mark Thompson is great. I like Saskia did a fantastic job. Hopefully I'm saying her name right. Did a fantastic job as well. And I just liked how the book was structured from both Han and Leia's point of view, and each chapter alternated. So you got a bit of time with each character, which was really, really nice as well.
Right. Yeah. The only
not
thing that
audiobook specific, but
the only thing that was a little like kind of would throw you off is because they would switch between the two narrators, there were more characters than just Han and Leia. So you would hear Mark's version of, a certain character.
That's true. I guess I didn't get that far. I listened to it a little bit at the beginning, but not extensively because I'd already read the book. But
And for the most part,
yeah,
it didn't stand out too much, but there were a couple characters where, like, when Mark Thompson would do his version, and then when Saskia would do her version, I'd almost forget that it was the same character because it was so different. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the same character.
I
So,
never thought about it that way. You're right. Yeah. Huh.
and then at the
That is an
very
interesting
end,
challenge.
I think the last chapter was Han and Leia, because each chapter would say Han or Leia. And I think the last chapter was Han and Leia. Or maybe they just did that for the audiobook. Interesting, because in the book it just says Han. But
yeah.
But yeah, in the audiobook
did they alternate?
They did.
Or how
they
did
alternated.
They do?
So like when it was
like characters who was speaking, or what did they do? Like just paragraphs, or how did they alternate?
No, who was speaking? So if Han was speaking, it would be Mark Thompson, and when Leia was speaking, it would be Saskia.
And who was who narrated the rest? Like, was there any like the internal monologue and stuff? Was it?
So it would be based
whoever
on
was thinking. Okay.
Yeah, it was that was kind of a weird. They tried to do something there that I don't know.
A cool attempt.
So well,
yeah,
but it was kind of a cool idea. But it was a short, it was only like 4 pages, I think. Of
yeah, it's a very short chapter.
Yeah, so you kind of hear it from both of their, the part where Leia like laughs because Han wants to put a kitchen in the Falcon.
Right, in the Falcon.
Like, what, you think I can cook?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have to say that's one thing I really liked about this book. While we're talking about the chapter format and everything, was how short the chapters were and how many of them. I found it very easy just to sit down and read really quick, because I like to stop. I think we talked about this last time on our last review too. I like to stop and on the chapter marks, and it's very easy to pick up, read for a few minutes, and put back down if you're in the middle of stuff. So I like there's like 60 some odd chapters.
That's been the case for the last few books. Brotherhood, Shadow of the Sith, this book, all kind of have that format, short chapters. And we did talk about it. I think when we talked about Brotherhood, I talked about it in the last episode with Adam, like about Shadow of the Sith, like how much we enjoy the short chapters, and gives you that kind of progression and that stopping points. And yeah, this book definitely had the same dynamic.